Good morning. Can we have a quick check on test mic, all that, Prem? Good morning. Stephen, good morning. Mani, good morning.
Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
everybody.
Good morning, everybody. I think the attendee lists are going up, so we'll start in exactly 2 minutes. Some people are having some issues logging in. Got a request from Bahrain. So while we are at it, I think now it's perfectly fine. Yeah. Stephen, do you want to check your presentation to show it and all that?
Yeah, just do a quick check.
Yeah, let's do a quick check.
Just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. I've stopped sharing now.
Yeah, I can do it one way. So let's start. So very good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining our podcast. This is a new launch that we are doing in association, of course, with Paramount in the Middle East. So data, and more data, right? So we started the data journey with a simple dictionary on the Excel to the current sophisticated data catalogs, which run over these large multiple clouds, and they read for businesses now to become more data driven. So let's look at something that has happened around the world. Why is data suddenly so important? Why are not just enterprises, but nations and governments going after the so-called oil? Everybody talks about data being the new oil. I don't want to repeat that cliche. The reason we are all assembled here is classically defined by a current affair which happened in our country in India. So we have a very large conglomerate that started in the traditional oil and gas business and refinery. And today this conglomerate has attracted the largest foreign direct investment in the world, the likes of KKR to FP to Google, for a digital platform. How can a refining conglomerate, an oil and gas conglomerate like the likes of Reliance, attract so much into Geo? Because that's where the new action is. Let's come closer home to the Middle East, especially in the UAE. Two very highly acclaimed data-driven enterprises recently acquired by the bosses of data. One, of course, which I'm talking about is Careem. Careem recently got acquired by Uber. Not recently, it's been a while. And then Souk getting acquired by Amazon. And we also came to know that Dubizzle is in talk with NASPA. So what exactly does the governments today, the enterprises today, see in this new gold called data? That's what we are planning to talk today. And this is a fortnightly podcast. We will be having people from all walks of life who have dealt with data, from data catalog product people to consultants to the new audit requirements that have come up. So for that, let me first invite Premchand Kurup. Hello, Prem. Good to see you.
Morning.
Prem has been a veteran in the Middle East. He's co-founded and run a lot of companies. So let me ask and start the day by asking Prem, how important is data in your life, Prem? Over to you. Let's start with Prem.
Thank you, Adit. Before I answer that question specifically, I want to tell our audience that, being in the midst of three stalwarts like Adit, who I've always considered a person whose learning capability is absolutely amazing. And the kind of knowledge that he has built over the years that I have seen him is absolutely commendable. Stephen is an authority on artificial intelligence and data. And Mani is a very, very strong process consultant. So sometimes, I actually ask them, do you really want me to be here on this panel? Probably I am here because of my longevity of serving in this field, that they all felt that this is a good fixture to have here. But I think, more importantly, I'll try and see whether I can bring some form of implicity and a semblance of meaning to an extremely complex space. Let me start by recalling what I read several years ago. The moment you get onto the internet, somebody begins to make money, and that somebody is not you. This is the reality. So data, to answer Adit's question, is extremely important, whether it is to improve operational efficiency or whether it is to monetize that data. Either way, it is of critical importance. Now, when it comes to a small company like us, what we look at, the way we look at data is that there are two kinds of data. One is the data that we create and we own, which we need to protect, and we need to have a governance mechanism around that. The other is somebody else's data, the data that belongs to our customers, and it is vital, it is incumbent on us to ensure the privacy of that data, even if the customer may not have explicitly mentioned that. So protecting that data and ensuring the privacy of that data, I think, is an important activity even for a small company like us. So Aditya, I hope I've answered your question to begin with. Now let's move on.
Let me then bring in Mani. Mani has also been a veteran. He's taken up very important roles in the audit space, in the consulting space, in cyber and information securities. Has a span of, experience across Middle East and Africa to APAC. Mani, welcome to the show. And how important is data in your life? Are you a consumer or are you a user of data? Yes.
I am both, Adit. Everybody, every one of us listening or conveying a message today is either consuming or receiving or maybe doing it parallel. But I go back to what Prem started off, where Prem was wondering what is he bringing to table. So Prem, with your longevity in the region and all that experience under your belt, you're bringing data to the table, essentially. Can I expect others to mute themselves? Please, I hear some disturbance. Thank you. So I was pretty amused when Prem made the statement and he was trying to find an answer. Essentially, Prem, we are all looking for the data that's going to come from you today. So in terms of why data is important. But Adit, to be more specific to your question, on how data plays a role, I think the most important aspect of data in everybody's life is to back up your argument, right? Look at it from that perspective first. We can get into the technicality of data in the commercial space or the professional space. But everything that whenever you seek data, you're essentially trying to back up an argument. So that argument could be a conviction-driven argument. That argument could be putting for the point. That argument could be proving something otherwise. But like somebody once said, we all trust in God, but everybody else has to bring data to the table. And it's a very, 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 very old saying. Now, how clear and contextually appropriate that data is I think the subject of discussion today. And that's why we have somebody like a Prem, Steve, and yourself, and so many others who are also probably veterans who have joined us as audience today. Data is everything. Thanks, Adit. Over to you.
With that, let me bring in the third panelist, Stephen. Stephen comes from a background of big data, artificial intelligence. He's worked and played around with structural data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. He's done RDBMS, relations. How do you link data? So, Stephen, welcome to the show. And somebody who's been a data practitioner more than any of us who's been cybersecurity, I would say. How important is data for you in life as well as in your career? And moving forward, why is it such an important space?
Thanks, Adit. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me on this call. It's a distinct pleasure to be a part of such an esteemed panelist here. This question that Adit poses to me, I think, is a very fundamental question in my life, I would think. Data, what air is to biology, I feel data is to any IT infrastructure. If you look at any business or any aspect of life, anything that you need to do is always substantiated by information. And without this information, you cannot progress. In a similar analogy, in any IT infrastructure, without understanding the most fundamental constituent of this architecture, you will not be able to progress your business in any direction.
So right, with that, let me ask you the first main question, of course, if you want to share your screen, and you can check that as well. So let's take us through a step-by-step approach. When you talk about a unified data layer, or the topic of our discussion, the single version of truth. Now,
Yeah.
for people who have been on the panelists, people have worked with this, right from a swamp where there is no structure in data, where the contact information is second name, not first name, to the telephone numbers in the CRM system not having +9715 in Dubai and not having +976 or whatever is the country code, to having it somewhere else. Let's say an invoice that gets registered and brought in as an invoice system, and you do a photo capture of that, there is no, let's say a tagging or a proper catalog in place. So how do you take a step-by-step data for all the touch points for data coming into the system, consuming it, and then going out of the system? So you call it a universal data layer, you call it single version of truth, a data office, and then why is it a competitive advantage when you actually do that? So what's the decide state? How do you do it step by step? Over to you, Stephen, and then I will bring in Prem and to the business aspect of it.
Sure,
Others
absolutely.
can mute Prem and Mani. Yeah.
So
you can mute.
I think at this point of the conversation, everybody who's spoken so far has articulated the importance of data. And similarly, organizations across the world also understand the value of data in different capacities, and they've done whatever they could do to basically capture as much data as possible, whether it was external data or internal data, or data that was coming from machines or data that was being generated from human beings. Everybody has sort of realized the importance of it and has made an attempt to capture it. And I'd sort of like to supplement what I'm trying to say with a presentation. So let me just go ahead and do that. If you could just kindly confirm that you can see my screen. Can I have a confirmation, Adit?
Yes, go ahead. It's visible for us. Yes.
Okay. So fundamentally, before we get into the thick of things, I think it's very important for us to understand the typical journey of any organization that is dealing with data, and how this typical journey that results in an organization being completely data rich is still suffering so many problems and cannot realize the true value of data that they have, right? So if you look at any IT infrastructure across the world, whether we're looking at small startups or we're looking at large enterprises, data can largely be categorized into 3 layers, or any IT infrastructure can be broken down into 3 fundamental layers. The first layer is, where is my data coming from, which is your source. After you've identified where your data comes from, you decide that you want to store this data. So that's your storage layer. And then finally, how do you want to consume this layer, which is your presentation layer. Right from the early 80s, the inceptions when we were looking at data as flat files and things like Excels were complex data structures. Today, when we're looking at multi-geography databases or unstructured databases, in this transition, this paradigm or this 3-tiered structure of an IT architecture has remained fairly constant. What has changed, however, is the complexity of each underlying layer. We initially started, like I mentioned earlier, our journeys with representing data in the form of rows and columns. And as our systems and our data ecosystem around us grew, we started realizing that we could not represent data in this format any longer. And that's when things started transitioning to semi-structured data, and then eventually unstructured data. And then you started having data that was more rich. You started having data that started coming out from machines, from IoT devices, from ERPs, from weblogs. And as a result of which, what was a simple producer of data has now become a very intricate entity in itself. In order to store this varied data structure, we first had RDBMSs, which fundamentally represent data in the form of tables in rows and columns. And as things started transitioning, the nature of these storage systems also started evolving, and consequently, the consumption layer also started evolving to the growing demand of the world, so to say. But even in this evolution, what hadn't changed is the fundamental structure which we started with, which is where is my data coming from? How do I store this data, and how do I present this data? So if that's the case, if we're looking at an architecture that seems to be fitting into three very fundamental layers, what's the problem, right? And let me introduce you to that right now. This unidirectional flow that I was talking about, where we had data going from source to storage to application, started transitioning and becoming more complicated. We started seeing data from different sources going to different storage layers, and then data from different storage layers going to different application systems. And then things got even more complicated when we started seeing data going directly from the source to the application layer. As a result of this varied mix, we've sort of lost this nature of a data paradigm where we had unidirectional flow of information, and it's transitioned into an information technology conundrum. And this, in my opinion, is the best way to understand the very important need of having an IT infrastructure that has a clear, well-defined data governance system. Adit, so
Now,
I think
to that question, the problem is clearly stated. Now, what is the defined or a desired state? Quickly, what are the steps to make sure that you pull maximum information from this bidirectional and consumer to producer equation? And then I'll bring in Prem for the business angle of that. Just a quick one more slide, and then the desired state and the process of getting there.
Sure. So let me just sort of articulate that. So now that we have a clear idea of what any IT infrastructure looks like, the idea is to identify the responsibility of each component and let that component do what it's good at doing. Like how I mentioned that we started seeing data flowing from source systems directly to application systems, right? We're bypassing a layer called the storage layer, and thereby we're losing some sort of control because everybody is doing everything. We want to have a very defined system where we have a proper governance architecture that says, okay, this is where your data quality shall be maintained, this is where your data access shall be maintained, and whatever other different components you have in your IT infrastructure shall be maintained by a dedicated unit.
We'll come to MDM, data quality, and Meta in a bit. Let me bring in Prem at this point. Prem, you have clearly defined why personal data, company data. Now, when we are faced with the current situation where the governments of the country, the people who are governing us, have clearly understood the competitive advantage of having data represented in a very meticulous manner, and they're pushing down on businesses, small and big. You're a businessman at the end of the day, and you're supposed to comply to a certain standard that these governments, whether it's India's digital law policy or whether it's in Bahrain's AWS news or FIFA from Qatar or Saudi Arabia talks about Vision 2030, UAE talks about the ADA framework, AdSec. So when, as a business owner, you had a requirement or you had an opportunity when AdSec came into existence, when ISR came into existence, when NESA came into existence, they took certain framework from across the world, created a benchmark, and told the businesses in that country, please go and comply by a particular date and have a certain set of people to manage the system. How did your business react, and how did you go about talking about this? What did you do yourself as Paramount, and what did you preach and consult for other customers on these parameters? And then I'll bring in money about the certifications and framework itself. Prem, over to you. The others can mute. Stephen and Mani can mute. Yeah.
Share my thoughts with you on two lines. One is on the lines of what Aditya exactly asked me in terms of the various standards like AdSec and ISR and NISA. These were the standards which were announced over the last 10-15 years. Now, the other is that I want to share with you my thoughts on data itself. Now, on the issue of standards, by the time these standards were announced, as a company, we had already started providing consulting services on first BS 7799 and ISO 27001. And we found that these standards which were announced, which were, let's say, the local standards, were modifications on the ISO 27001, and it was easy for us, therefore, to expand our consulting base and provide consulting. Now, what we found that clients really wanted or understood clearly was that there is a defined period of time, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the size of the organization, to perform consulting. And the result of that consulting would be a pre-certification audit, which is also done by the consulting company. And after that, you have an external auditor like BSI or TUV who comes and audits that client with respect to that standard and then certifies them. Now, for us, we looked at it at that point in time only as a pure business activity. Now, on the issue of data, the fact that I think all need to understand, I want to bring simplicity into this. The moment you say you have to govern something, you can even say, I want to govern a state. I think the step number one is that you need to have a set of people dedicated to that governance function. After you have a set of people, then there has to be clearly defined policies, processes, and procedures that this set of people will follow and determine whether the state has got the compliance to the policy, the process, and procedures. Now, this is how I think it should work even for data. Now, in order to execute on these processes in a defined manner at scale and at speed, you probably need some technologies. So what comes first is people. Then you follow that up with processes, and then you follow that up with some technology. Therefore, on the area of data governance, I think that if we create a model where you have people, process, and technology, we will be in a position to provide consulting services to customers. But having said that, I want to draw your attention to how this industry has moved. Years ago, there was an IT manager, and the IT manager became a CIO. And then because security became so important, a CISO came in. Now, if you look at any IT organization, that IT organization has clearly defined two roles. There is an infrastructure manager, the person who manages the entire network and the desktops. And today, because of the movement to the cloud, there is also the addition of, let's say, cloud architects into this whole game. But in any case, this is all revolving around infrastructure. Then there is an applications manager. So the applications manager is the person who decides whether you want an ERP, whether you want a CRM, you want to have a retail banking application. He's the one who decides that, what platform to use, and then what databases that go along with it and all that. The database administrator is part of, let's say, that application team. But never has a company designated a manager for data. But today, I think going forward, a company has to designate a person definitely for data governance, and under him maybe a team has to be set up. Almost similar to the way we are moving for data privacy, for instance. I don't think data privacy can be part of the current security team. Data privacy officer or chief privacy officer will be a completely independent function with a lot of legal implications in that whole function itself. This is the way I think that will move, and maybe there is an opportunity for a completely new business focused only on data privacy. And that business can have maybe data governance as well.
Well said, Prem. Thank you. At this point juncture, we have to bring in Mani, who is the right person to take us through these different frameworks. And Mani and I share a very special relationship when it comes to frameworks and compliance audits. We've never been on the same page, and we respect each other for not being on the same page. So words like 27001 to BCM to BCMS to ISMS, then of course IT service management. The new kid on the block today is GDPR 27701, and then if you look at the new ADA document, there is 8000 as well. Now, too many frameworks, too many numbers. You need a continuous improvement, like Prem rightly said. Put the people first, then put the policy and procedure. What is the current level of confidence, Mani, that you see when you have conversation with customers across the region in this particular area? Should we start with data security, data protection, GDPR, PII, privacy, take them along this journey, or should we come from the business angle and say increase your invoicing, decrease your cost, use data to let's say solve use cases, and then bring the governance angle? Money, over to you.
Yeah, very interesting question. And this is one of the questions that haunts a lot of people who are about to embark on this data governance as a strategy or as a journey, right? So going back to your original statement on what is there a framework or is it a combination of frameworks? But I just want to let you all know that there is this huge difficulty and there is this confusion, and it is also true that there are no two data governance frameworks are exactly alike. I mean, today I can see that there is a data governance framework, two data governance frameworks for a country, right? There is one in Abu Dhabi, there is one in Dubai. The one in Dubai essentially stems out of the need that came from the Dubai data law. The one from Abu Dhabi is essentially a whole set of prescription from the control authority. Data governance is the overall discipline of data management. And if you actually decipher the vocabulary of it, the governance is of a subject, right? And I really like when Prem said that you have to put people and the process first before the technology. Go back 10 years in history or 12 years or 15 years in history, when we were implementing the BS 7799 or the then ISO 27001, the most important step and the most confusing and difficult step was to identify data and classify them. I mean, I'm talking about information security today because I would like to believe that maximum participants from that background. The most important, confusing, and time-consuming step was that of identifying data and classifying the data. In the absence of that activity or that process, you will never be able to put any controls, either it could be a process control, people control, or technology control, to actually defend the very purpose of the initiative. Now, where does data governance or this new strategy come into picture? I think this is a very welcome step by governments. This will actually ease the difficulty that the privacy teams, the security teams have always been wondering what to do. I have a different view on both the data privacy and data security. I think the data privacy and data security will either run in parallel across all aspects of governance or will be considered as a subset to implement data quality.
And 1 minute, Mani, to interject here. You know, what I want to point out to you is a very, very simplistic scenario that I think exists in most of our large customer environments. And that is, the person who is actually the owner of the data does not take accountability for that data, and he does not say that this data is confidential, but he will blame everybody under the sun when that data is, let's say, lost or tampered with. Now, this is an issue that has to be fixed. The ownership has to be fixed. So digital rights management, therefore, must, I think, be implemented first by every single company before they even start talking anything about data protection, data security, data privacy and all. I create a data, it is my responsibility to define who can read it, who can print it, who can not take a backup and all that. That is not happening today. Even after so many years, and digital rights management today is actually available along with an Office 365. Yet we find that people don't implement DRM but are talking about data security.
Right. So right to access a data to be set by the owner of the data. Stephen, with that, let's get into the topic about what, when you create a data or you create a Word document, you have an owner, you have a data, what do you call it? And how do you start? For rights management is rights to access. It's part of the privacy practice. But something more fundamental, when you create a data, how do you create a meta? And how do you manage that meta? And how do you give it to a functional tool like a privacy tool, or to a privacy steward, or to an PII person, and he gives the right to access? Stephen, can you take us through that? When you create a data, how do you create an MDM? How do you catalog it? How do you create a meta? And then what Mani rightly said, you put this framework and then you need the tools to manage it. So if you can take us through that in a single slide or up to you, and then 5 minutes, and then I'll open the session for more Q&A and question and answers, and in between we can ask further questions. So let's have that.
Absolutely. I think we're at a very interesting position in this discussion. I think Prem actually, brought about a very important point. This concept of ensuring that the data owners take accountability for their data is in so many ways the source of all problems, right? And to sort of tie that to your question, how this typically works is in the purview of data governance. What it really means is once we identify where the data is being created, that data will then be associated with an individual who then becomes a data owner, who basically is the sole governor for that particular data source, and then defines the consumption of that data across the board, and also at a granularity of how that data can be consumed. So data governance frameworks typically take care of this aspect of data consumption by for the lack of a better word, by implementing very simplistic policy frameworks that says that if this data has to be consumed by the sales department, it will be consumed in this fashion. If it is being consumed by, say, the C-level in the sales department, it will be consumed like this. If it will be consumed by the operational guys, it will be consumed like this. And that's how a typical strategic approach is actually set up. And this falls into the category of data stewardship in the data governance framework.
What precedes, or let's say comes after you create a data steward? Does cleansing happen, or does injecting meta happen? What is the next step? Or to create an MDM model? What is an MDM model and a data catalog? Very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go from data creation to data consumption and all the different things that we should do to basically ensure that we have a single version of truth, or all these other superlatives that are being thrown around as buzzwords in the organization. Everybody's trying to do one data, everybody's trying to do universal data lake. Essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to have a right representation of the data. They're already collecting the data. They've done the first step correctly. Now the challenge is they've collected data and they're not sure who can consume this data and how they can consume it, right? So data governance is an attempt, or basically is a strategy to basically sort of resolve that issue. So now what you do is, number one is you identify where your data is coming from. So you've basically got your data sources. When your data has to, then you decide, you look at your end objectives as well, right? Before you decide what you want to do in the middle, you say, okay, I have guys that have to consume this data from business reports, right? Let's just keep things simple. I have guys who have to consume things from business reports, and in the reporting tier, I've got C-level guys and operation guys. Now, what I need to do is I've identified what my objective for my data consumption is. I've also identified who the target end users are, right? So now that I've been able to identify what I want to do with my data, I can then decide what I need to do to my data to be able to achieve that, right? So now,
a simplistic answer is just go and implement a DWH solution, like a data warehousing. So at this point, let me bring in Mani. I mean, we always have a tool way to do it, right, Mani? And you strongly disagree with me on that point. A tool cannot solve all this problem. So whatever that we are talking about, creating the data, single version of truth, putting an MDM catalog, it's very easy done. I know the tool names also by then. Some of them we are going to associate with as part of this business. Now, Mani, what is the problem when you don't train people and then don't get them certified on a particular framework and then go and implement a data warehousing solution and a BI or a self-service visualization? So what is the problem that you and Stephen should jointly work together? So this is a combined discussion now. I want both of you to contribute. So Mani, to start with you. Should we train people, put them into this thing? Should we train them on tools? Should we get them ready on certifications? should the IT manager, the CI, or the chief data officer, which Prem rightly talked about, start with getting a certification on his board saying, I'm ISO 80105 certified or 27701 certified, my people are certified. What is your take on that? My job is to sell a DWH solution. Like I said, it's a one-fit-all solution, but that's not how things work. So, Mani, you and Steven.
Yeah, very very good question. Because see, Adit, we all learn from mistakes, and this is one of the mistakes I think most organizations did many years ago. I will come back to the point about the DRM in a bit, but look at the DLP that organizations implement. I mean, I go back to the very famous statement that we make in the lighter note: a fool with a tool is still a fool. Or that's simply because they are not trained, right? So I have seen some of the best technologies lying around without being commissioned properly, and there is this joke that says that firewall is nothing but a glorified router. So, and we have seen SIMs dusting around. So the primary challenge is not because the framework is not robust or the approach is not robust. It's because the comprehending the problem statement is not there. So going back and implementing a tool is definitely not right. It took many years for organizations to realize that the DLP was not a silver bullet, and they needed to have a process in place and train people to identify data that needs to be secured or protected, whatever it is, right? I don't think we are sitting on a different context with data governance. I mean, yes, you could have a technology front end, but if you don't have enough people trained on how to enable and sustain the technology implementation, you're going to be back to square one. You're going to be that company which has DLP, but potentially still exfiltration of data is happening. You can't protect 100%, but what is the assurity factor? Where are you governing that? And coming to your statement, I'm not completely saying no to technology, but I think it has to be an informed decision on when to bring the technology. It is not step number one.
Perfect. I think Mani, you hit the nail on the head. And generally, I don't agree a lot with Mani on certain things, but this is something I do agree. Prem, you also.
Let me that with an example. See, I had the opportunity of discussing with a very large liquor distribution company in the UAE several years ago. And at that time, I found that this company had two independent systems, both of which were, among top of the class. They had a very
not
good
talking to each other, probably not talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean, they had an ERP system and they had a warehouse management system, and both were two separate systems. The warehouse system was run by the warehouse manager and the ERP system was run by the IT manager. Now, there was an inventory module, or let's say an inventory database in both the systems, and inventory would never match. Now, where does this problem lie? See, the thing is that whenever you have two systems, let's say two different technologies, I think, at least from my experience, it is very, very important for you to decide which is the driving system and which is the driven system. This invariably does not happen correctly. But if you take a decision on this, and this is where the process comes in, the issue is not with the technology. The issue is with the process that you have defined on how the technology will be used. So it again comes back to, I think, having good people. They should be trained. You can't have somebody to run one whole program without giving him any tools. So he must have tools. He must have excellent training on those tools. And there must be a clearly defined process. So that is the reason why I think, I don't know whether it was conscious or unconscious. It is always people, process, technology. You talk to anybody, even today, he will say people, process, technology. But when it comes to implementing, he will go and buy one technology first.
Mani, yeah, over to you. Yeah, we did discuss about DRM.
Point there. I think.
Yeah, one point, Steven. I'll come to you in 1 minute. This DRM and this rights access and this privacy tool, etc., and Mani's discussion, and which Prem brought in, very, very important point. The point that I want to say is when you start on a journey and you talk about people all the time, do you do a gap assessment on the people skill set, or do you start training them outright? So that's one question to Mani, and I want Stephen to respond back to Mani. Mani,
So Adit, if Adit, the point is,
if you
yes,
are given the choice to become a data officer.
I heard you. So we do,
Yeah.
if there is an auditor or an assessor going by the book actually calls for assessing the human capital who is going to be in charge of the initiative as well. Take a simple 27001. It actually calls for a specific domain on people, right? About skilling of the people, right? That's point number one. Point number two, going back to my previous dialogue, when I said technology is not the first step, at the same breath, I would also like to say that in the absence of a technology, all those steps that you would have done before would fall flat. It's only a matter of time. So it is not a debate of is it policy versus technology or procedure or an SOP or a guideline versus or a framework versus technology. It is about, are you taking that informed decision to bring in technology at the right moment after having drafted that process and after having trained the people on the process and the technology. But if you do all of that in the absence of technology, it is only a matter of time that your initiative is going to die. So
Right.
like Prem said, and it has to,
Yeah.
it has
After Mani.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I would resonate on similar thoughts with what Mani said. And I also largely agree with what Prem just articulated, that it has to be like a people process technology sort of iteration, but they're not disjoint aspects. In order to define what people you need, you have to clearly state what the problem is, and to be able to come up with a clear problem definition, you also have to have clear vision of what the end objective is, right? And when you look at a problem from both those aspects, from a top-down approach and from a bottom-up approach, as far as as a data ecosystem is concerned, that's when you typically come up with a very clear framework definition of what you're trying to achieve, right? So this is my response to what Mani just, to what Mani said, and to also to your question. But what I also wanted to importantly add was a very interesting point that Prem mentioned. He said, based on his example, right, he said that there was two different technologies. They had an ERP and they had a data warehouse management system, right? And the fundamental challenge was when they were trying to track inventory, there was a decoupling happening. There was no synergy in communication there, and there has to be, and that is the fundamental cornerstone of single version of truth. That's the reason why a lot of organizations are evolving and are saying, okay, today we're going to have cloud, today we're going to have ERP, today we're going to have IoT, and they're doing all of these great things. But these systems are not working in a symbiotic fashion or in an integrated fashion, so that their output that comes out from there speaks exactly what each business owner is really looking for, and that is where the crux of the problem is.
Let's talk about some interventions that have helped businesses grow from certain country perspective, right? So we talk about ecosystem for startups, and countries that have initiated a data policy has, of course, grown and thrived much beyond the countries that are still data poor. So with that perspective, here is a country in the UAE, of course, Bahrain is talking about it, Qatar is talking about it, Saudi is having. Most of them are now telling the business owners, they're enforcing something on them, like an internal audit. You must get your house in order. This decoupling of two software systems cannot go. Of course, if a Larry Page or a Bill Gates talks to the employees, they'll get it done. But now here you have the His Highnesses or the vice presidents and the presidents putting their foot down and said, enough is enough. We are a data-rich company. We want to be an AI market leader in the Middle East. So please abide by certain standards. Please get this done on a particular date or a time. Prem, then Stephen, and then of course Mani. How critical is this going to help organizations, government departments, cloud service providers, streaming and IoT devices, generally the OEM market in the Middle East, specifically in UAE? Quick 1 minute, and then we'll open for question and answers.
Various applications that are going to definitely come in as a result of health tech and fintech and insurance tech. And, there is going to be a proliferation of data, and that data management, the governance of that data, I think is going to be extremely critical. And therefore, when there is a governmental regulation, it will definitely give an impetus to industries around that whole program of data governance and data management. And I think it's a huge business opportunity.
Stephen, how ready are we to start giving this to businesses in the UAE? You've gone through the compliance, you've seen how governments have stepped in and why it is so important, be it India to the APAC region, to me, everywhere you see this.
Yeah.
What would you do?
So
Start with an audit? What do you do? How ready are we to help the business?
I'd like to preface that with a very important aspect that every data governance project typically suffers with. Everybody says, I want to have single version of truth, but nobody knows how to get there. Nobody knows what is the first aspect that I need to look at. And I know I sound like a broken tape recorder, but it's people, process, and technology. And the framework that has come out right now very clearly articulates what these roles and responsibilities are and what the different domains within people, process, and technology are. They have clearly articulated these as data management domains. They're saying that no matter what size of industry you are or what department you are, you have to have these following data management domains. And if you have these domains, these are the various compliances that you need to look at. What that basically means for an individual like me, when I look at a problem statement like that, I know exactly what they're looking for because they've clearly defined what the issue is. So I just simply need to go in there very strategically and say, step number one is their organization conducts an internal audit, which basically says how well their current infrastructure is. External auditors go in there and say, yes, you are either compliant or not compliant. If there is a non-compliance, then what do we need to do to get compliant? So our consultants come in, which is step two. Our consultants come in and say, okay, this is your current state of affairs. This is where you eventually want to be. After this report has been created by the consultants, and then finally the technologists go in and say, okay, we will use such and such technology because you are using such and such technology, and this is how we will get the job done. And therefore, as a result of this, you will go from non-compliance to compliance.
Money. Where are we in this journey to help others?
I think Stephen put it up the right way. There is a sequence to be followed. One is, of course, to assess where we are. I mean, I would like to believe that some of the large companies would have in some form or manner initiated a data governance subject. It could be intentionally driven by a data governance as a topic, or it could be because of a business need. But I would like to believe that every organization would have in their mind initiated some form of data governance. It could be in the area of security, it could be in the area of anything else. But I think the first step is to stay cognizant of what is it that they have done, how well they have done. Should we redo what they have done, or should we extend from whatever they have done? I was talking to a large organization where they have officially appointed a data officer, and I actually spoke to the data officer, and he told me that this company has done a lot of groundwork even before I joined, and that made my job easier. So I think organizations over the last 1 year have been hearing this news and they have embarked, but I wouldn't be the right person to see how the organizations in the Middle East are reacting to this new data governance framework. But I think both the frameworks are drafted extremely adequately, referencing to the right aspects. It's all about deciphering it and assessing how to apply it. I think that's where somebody like Steve and would play a large role to assess to begin with.
And it's quite remarkable that countries across Qatar to Saudi, the whole region has looked at the importance. Because clearly, when I looked at the FIFA standard, it talks about collect, store, maintain data. It talks about quality, availability, reliability, validity. These names are, I mean, these are terms that ring like it's super, right, to your ears. With that, let's have a parting one line from, or a couple of lines from three of you, and we are open for questions. Sushin, I don't know how the technology works, but probably you'll have to read out a question, and then we can take a couple of questions. We still have some time, 10 minutes left. Prem, let's start with you.
I think
Very
just
exciting
like
times, Prem.
very exciting times. I think just like how data security became a huge business opportunity way back in the early 2000s. And I think the first CISO was appointed in the UAE in the 2002, 2003 kind of time frame. Until then, there was no CISO. Today, you have around 300, 400 CISOs in the whole region. Today, there is hardly anybody who is a data privacy officer or a chief privacy officer. I have a feeling that in the next 10 years, there will be at least another 300 DPOs or /CPOs. And that's a big opportunity even for people who come from the security space. They can consider seriously whether they want to move into the privacy space. So the same thing I think will happen with data governance as well. So there is a huge opportunity for people to quickly learn this subject and then move into that area. And as far as small businesses like us are concerned, I think there is a huge opportunity around consulting, because there will definitely be a consulting component that will be a process component.
Mani.
Right.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we are witnessing today is digital transformation, irrespective of how large or small organizations are. Every organization, to maintain pace and stay relevant in the times we are in, are embarking on a digital transformation. Thanks to pandemic, it's just speeded up. I would like to believe that data is a foundation for every organization's digital transformation. And if not now, they can never get this data governance ever right. And I think this fundamental aspect has to be looked into very seriously, in the absence of which I don't think they would be in the right path to digital transformation.
Steven.
So I think through the course of this discussion, we've all clearly understood the value of data. We've all clearly understood that if you do not use your data the right way, the problems that you face. The remediation or the solution is usually a very obscure path, but the way we stand today with a clear framework defined, the path is no longer very obscure. We have a very clear framework and a direction that says that if you follow line number 1, 2, 3, you will have an IT infrastructure that represents a single version of truth. The only thing that we need to do now is just go ahead and establish that.
Perfect. Sushin, do we have questions? If so, you can post it, or
there is no question now. There is one.
okay.
Yeah. So the first one question is, as compared to India, what are the Indian frameworks formulated for different industrial domain like utilities, manufacturing, etc.?
Yeah, business glossary and industrial domain. Can you just repeat the question, Sushin?
Yeah, as compared to India.
Or Sushin, you're slightly inaudible. If you could just share the question on the chat, that would help, and then I could read it out.
Okay, sure, I'll do that.
So Steven, yeah, I think something related to manufacturing, IoT, shop floor, business glossary. I think a quick one-liner from you. I think that's where the question is, but we'll wait for the question.
Yeah, I think I'd like to hold till I see the question so that I can give a specific response.
I have shared a question in the chat, Steven.
Okay. So the question is, as compared to India, what are the Indian frameworks formulated for different industrial domain like utilities and manufacturing? Okay, so if I understand this question correctly, they're basically asking what are the frameworks, which I'm assuming in this case is what are the data governance frameworks that we need to follow in India to ensure that industries like utilities and manufacturing are doing data governance right. Well, the unfortunate reality is that India doesn't have an extensive body of policies that define that if you are in this industry, this is the compliances that you need to follow. However, there are compliances within each subdomain. So I'll give you an example. If somebody says that I have an issue with data quality, what is the best way for me to ensure that I am doing data quality right? Therefore, you go to ISO, and then you see what does ISO have to say about data quality, and there's something called ISO Data Quality 8001. If I have the ISO number correct, that represents the policies that you have to follow. So that's how you would typically approach a standardization problem in India.
To further add to your question, especially in utilities where they're using the AMR and the AMI, the advanced metering system, there is a standard which is out there, which is world over on submetering and metering and all that. So the tools that you use, whether it's the GE tool or the Oracle tool for billing and submetering, it follows certain data governance, data catalog principles. So your supplier, along with the tool or the quality management, the data quality ISO standards, is currently what most of the utilities are looking at worldwide. Now, we are expecting India to come out with the new latest EIA policy end of this year, right? Because of political issues and all that. But that's an interesting space. So shop floor manufacturing, IoT sensors, SCADA DCS, UPC, OA Connect, AMR, AMI, that is the very, very important area for data governance, especially because money is electricity or money is steel manufactured or mining done. So data quality, data governance is very, very critical for these functions. And of course, we would like to help you in whatever means and forms we can. Next question, Sushi.
It's there in the chat. The next one.
And also, I think we can reuse some of the frameworks that are created in the UAE and in Singapore for the India case also. I think Mani can comment on it next. Yeah, Stephen, next question.
Yeah, so the next question seems a little off tangent, but I will read it out nonetheless. As most of the companies are backing out of China, make technology in telecom industry, and India has already has 2G and 3G and 4G installation. Will it be a future threat, and any measures need to be taken? So this, Adit, this seems like a rather tangential question. I don't know if you'd like to add any response to that.
4G and 3G.
I think the 5G option definitely won't be with Chinese manufacturers, in India at least. Of course, some other countries are also pushing back. But yes, in the case of 5G, one interesting point is 5G with all the front hauls and so much of data being shipped across devices to towers to data centers, and basically you have a completely cloud enabled connectivity system in 5G. The importance of data governance, management of data quality, and the data catalog or an MDM is absolutely critical. So anybody using 5G services or a LoRa WAN or all these kind of things, yes, please get back to us. We have a few things that we need to discuss ASAP. But on the political front as well as on framework, I think we should just wait and watch. As of now, no Huawei in 5G. It's cancelled. So that's the offside. Yes, Prem and Mani, please. About data governance and privacy. Yeah.
See, 5G is going to be a game changer in my view. And I think that most of the infrastructure people, I don't know whether I should use this platform to say that, but I think they will be obsolete. Unless we are going to learn very fast on how 5G operates, and like how you use the word software, it's all going to be on software. It's all about
software defined anything. Software defined anything.
Software
yeah,
defined. And then the thing is, operate at such a high speed, it means therefore that the attacker is also going to come at such a high speed. Data is going to
big data problem.
High speed. So everything that you do has to be done at very high speed. And that is why I think there is going to be a significant change on process consulting as well, because you will have to do process consulting at speed and at scale. And you cannot do that without automating. Significant portion will have to.
Mani.
Yeah, I think Prem rightly put it. You need to have, I think speed is the name of the game, both in terms of applying a process, and of course the scalability is going to be the key. So I don't think this is any different in the times we are in. I think speed is going to be extremely critical. And with speed comes its own complications on how relevant the quality, the security, the resilience, and all of that. So obviously you can't be fast and meet with an accident. So obviously we need to be very careful in the speed at which we drive. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I can't decipher that question. Maybe
Yeah.
Steve did, but I'm not able to decipher that question. But are there threats? There is threat with every new invention and innovation. I think that's where innovation to defend also happens.
Right. Well said. I think it's a great note to one final question, Stephen, or we're done. We have one more
We
minute.
have more questions.
Cool. So I think as a conclusion, we have sent out a questionnaire, Sushin, I think. Oh, you have more questions? Okay.
Yeah. Steven, can
Yeah, so there's a very interesting comment, and this comment is coming from an information security officer. And the comment is, yes, there are no specific data privacy officer roles taken into consideration here, like any other in the Western region. We must have this. And it's really great to see someone like an information security officer saying something like this.
It will come, it will come.
I think, Prem, this whole question about labor market and people upskilling, and if you don't move with the notion. So I think let's each one of us have a, let's say, a sentiment sentence at least on that. People are saying there are no jobs. Some people are saying new jobs are getting created. This concept, because you've been in this business of teacherpreneurship, you train people. If one job goes, there's a new job. So like you rightly said, infrastructure gone is software defined anything. CI/CD pipelines have changed application development and maintenance. So very important question by this gentleman. Most privacy guys, what should they do? Should they go and learn law tomorrow? Or what should they do? So how does upskilling happen for infrastructure security players, for existing consultants who are in ISO 27000 space? What should we do? And then of course money.
Yeah, I think there are a multitude of things. Just to answer the specific question relating to ERP. See, I think the first thing that is easy to do and which will definitely be an easy win in any organization is to have some control established on unstructured data. So if you go Office 365 and implement the AIP, then what will happen is that you can have digital rights management along with data classification done, and then you can have a data leak prevention system implemented. That you can have another tool. But essentially what happens is that there will immediately be some form of a governance that you establish on all unstructured data. Now, when it comes to structured data, the data lying inside your ERP, data lying inside your supply chain management system, data lying inside your CRM, that has to be tackled completely differently, and you may have to implement a different tool set for that, but it is available. It's not that it is not available, but it is an important aspect, and to my knowledge, no company in the entire UAE has seriously looked at it. Everybody here, including all the CISOs, they talk about data security, but nobody has asked where does this data lie, and if this data is lying inside my SAP system, how am I protecting it? None, and everybody has got DLP systems, whether from Forcepoint, from McAfee, you name it, and the best DLP system on earth has been implemented in these companies. But will it protect your SAP financial data, for instance? It won't.
So are you suggesting the privacy officer position should be filled by somebody who's coming from the database side and the application side and unstructured data side? Possibly. That's a great career opportunity. Good move. He'll get into the CXO bracket.
Anybody can come from any direction today. It's all about the speed with which you learn and the kind of value proposition that you are able to put on the table.
Money, new jobs, exciting times, upskill, get more. What's your take on it, money? Labor.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started off my career, people were looking at the BS 7799 and 27001 And 20 years ago, the best and what was then considered security was probably a very good antivirus and a pop-up blocker. So nobody knew that in 2 decades we would be discussing threats with 5G and data governance and stuff like that. So obviously, with so earlier it used to be a 8-year, 10-year window before something new happened. But I think increasingly we're going to witness every 3rd year something new is going to happen. So if you're going to not upskill yourself and stay up to date on latest technologies, then I think you're going to be soon irrelevant. I mean, that applies to organizations, individuals, and professionals.
Well said. Stephen, last question. And then feedback forms and all that. Yeah.
Sure. So the question says, I strongly believe that data governance should be a part of any enterprise, and they must follow it irrespective of the new policies by ADA. What is your opinion?
Yeah, there must be a data.
Yeah,
yes,
I think
Stephen.
Because I think, like I earlier said in my statement, most organizations are in some form or manner embracing data governance. Now what's happening is there is some, if I may call, method to the madness. There is some structured way of applying the same thing across the organization, so to bring uniformity and accordance to a common objective, either geographically or at an organization. So I think, yes, you're right.
Yeah. There's a last question. I think it's a very interesting question. It says, for the Middle East, especially for oil and gas companies, cybersecurity is only 10% of the overall corporate risk. However, data from manufacturing, process, logistics, marketing, and corporate ERP are very critical, especially when it comes to shutdown, maintenance, and shipping. Do we have a plan to emphasize the importance of data security considering the above requirement?
I think it's a brilliant question, whoever has asked that question. Thanks for that question. Stephen, why don't you take over on SCM to others?
So, well, I think it's a phenomenal question, right? This entire space of how you use data, like we've been talking about, it's a very tightly coupled system. One part breaks down, the subsequent part doesn't get your information. And to Prem's early classic example of they've got an ERP system and they've got a data warehouse system, but they cannot match inventory. So typically what you do in a data governance project is you understand something called triage, which basically defines the severity or criticality of each component in your IT infrastructure. If this component goes down, what does it really mean to the business? Versus if this component goes down, what it really means to the business. Once you've been able to identify the priority of uptime for each component in your IT infrastructure, you then correspondingly define a remediation or a triage process for that particular component.
Now, to add to Stephen's comment, predominantly in the oil and gas and manufacturing, today we see disparate systems, right? You have, let's say, alarm system, you have production system, you have marketing and tool that talks about how much is the barrel cost, and then you have maintenance system, you have shutdown procedures, all being handled by individual systems, each turning out data after data after data. One talks Arabic, the other one talks Hindi, the third one talks English. How do you bring about uniformity of all this information is the right way to answer that oil and gas question. So we need a single area where English gets converted or anything gets converted to English from of these disparate data systems and IT systems out there. And that, according to me, is single version of truth. Stephen, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I think you've said it very rightly, Adit. I think that's really what we're sort of looking at. I think if I can leave anybody, with any closing thoughts, because we always go through different eras of different buzzwords, right? Earlier, everybody was talking about, I want to be a Hadoop guy, I want to be a big data guy. Today, everybody's saying, I want to be a single version of truth guy. So what I'd like to say is we're living in an era right now where single version of truth has gone through so many different iterations. There are so many different examples to look at from where we can learn from their mistakes. And we also have a framework in place that clearly defines if you want to achieve or go to the path of single version of truth, there is a clear definition of what you must do. So for all the organizations that are listening in on this or that will eventually listen to this, I just leave you with the fact that, you know, this information is available for you to consume and to basically take the next step in your, you know, in your journey of having a properly governed IT infrastructure so that you can achieve a single version of truth.
Right. Mani and Prem, final thoughts, moving away from cybersecurity to the actual business of data, where the systems that run, govern, make profits for you, reduce costs, is under the scope of a data management, data governance solution. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I think that whole space of everything to do with data, whether it be data security, data privacy, data classification, data
Data
management,
availability, data management, yeah.
the issue of whether that data is at the endpoint, is it on my on-prem assets or is it in the cloud? How is it accessed? Who is accessing? Is he authenticated? Is that channel encrypted? All that. I think there is a huge opportunity around this. And it may be difficult for somebody to specialize across the board, but if he can get there, I think then he is a wanted man. So best of luck
Mani.
to all people in the audience today. Good luck. I'm sure that everybody has got a very bright area to look
Future.
at. See.
Mani, single version of truth, data
Absolutely.
offices, data enabled. Yes, final parting comments.
No, absolutely. There is, I think, one of the biggest paralysis organizations will have to face is in the absence of single version of truth, because in a digitally driven society, you have no choice but to depend on data. And when you don't have that true legitimate data to take a decision, you are going to be being yourself. So I think, like you rightly said previously, it's going to be very interesting, exciting, and innovation-led. Is how I see it. There will be a solution.
Thank you,
a plethora
panelists.
of solutions, and I think that's how it's going to be. Thank you. Thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Mani. Thank you, Prem. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, everybody.
We will reconvene in 2 weeks where we'll have a new set of people. We'll be asking this time most probably on the data, product and tooling part of things. And we'll be joined then. So please come back and join us in 2 weeks time. Same day, it's a Monday and the second half of Monday. We won't be on morning time, we'll be on second half Mondays. So with that, it's signing off from us, and we've sent a requisition form. There's a feedback form. Please feel free to be in touch with us. We'll form a community on Facebook, and let's take this data journey forward together. Thank you all of you for joining. I think it was a wonderful cloud. They all stayed back also for most of the discussion, and it's nice to see that. Thank you once again, panelists. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Sushin, Leena, Deepak, the team behind us. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Have a safe week. Stay safe. Bye.
Thanks, guys.